I think that, you know, that's something that, again, that is the responsibility of the folks at DHS. You know, I think that the best law enforcement, the best interaction that we in law enforcement have with the public, we are most effective when we don't do things on the basis of stereotypes. When we look at that other factor, we look, you know, look at things holistically and come up with ways in which we use the resources that we have.
U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder just moments ago on brand new rules he's announcing on racial profiling. Those rules directed at federal law enforcement. This is the latest in a series of steps the administration is taking to address a lack of trust in the police. From police body cameras to a federal task force on this problem nationwide. One step the administration is not taking: curbing the use of surplus military equipment by local police. Last week, the White House released a report on that practice, uncovering 78,000 high-powered weapons and tactical vehicles sent to local police just in the last year. The White House, though, is standing by this politically popular practice, saying the equipment can be useful. But many are looking back at this year of militarized responses to protests and calling for change. Congressman Hank Johnson of Georgia is the sponsor of H.R. 5478. The Stop Militarizing Law Enforcement Act, a piece of legislation that hopes to do just that. Congressman Josh Earnest at the White House defended this practice of dispersing military gear to local police. He said this: there are certain situations in which these kinds of programs have been useful and contributed significantly to public safety. He cited Boston Marathon and the response to that specifically. Is the White House wrong to stand by this?
Well, I think it evidences a lack of understanding of the legislation that I have proposed, which would simply restrict the transfer of surplus military weapons-grade arms to state and local law enforcement agencies. It does not ban state and local law enforcement agencies from actually acquiring that equipment, but it would simply stop this proliferation through the Defense Department from the battlefield to the streets of surplus military weaponry to departments that have not evidenced any need to have that equipment, nor have officers who are trained and know how to utilize it, when to utilize it, and how to utilize it.
Right now, almost 500,000 pieces of that kind of military equipment are in the hands of both state and local police. Just take a look at St. Louis County, Missouri, where Ferguson is. According to the New York Times, it has 12 assault rifles, 6 pistols, 3 helicopters, 2 night vision pieces. What do you say, though, to police who will want more equipment, not less, in communities that are growing increasingly tense like that?
Yeah, the fact is, Ronan, that statistics show that crime levels are going down, particularly violent crime levels. Also, the rate of individuals incarcerated is decreasing. And so our society is actually becoming less violent internally. But yet our police are becoming more militarized. And it's in direct proportion to the shutdown of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and all of the surplus equipment that derives from that. And I don't want to see that equipment distributed to state and local law enforcement agencies willy-nilly and without their local governing authorities being involved in the acquisition process. That element is lacking, and it's something that's undemocratic, and I think every citizen out there, regardless of skin color or whatever political persuasion they should be concerned about a law enforcement agency being able to acquire for free this type of weaponry directly from the Defense Department and with no say or authority from the local governing authority. My legislation would stop that.
And Congressman, one of the extraordinary things about this piece of legislation is we are really seeing bipartisan support for this. It's not an issue that falls cleanly on right-left lines. And you appeared on the House floor last week seeming to be very, very moved by the Ferguson grand jury decision and the reaction to it. You called Congress cowardly. What can Congress do to be more brave?
Well, one thing Congress can do is to stop engaging in these messaging emphasis and this messaging emphasis and start dealing with the substantive matters that the American people need decisions made about. We've been the most do-nothing as Congress the last 2 sessions, so in other words, 4 years, Congress has basically been playing messaging games, trying to get rid of Democrats and get rid of President Obama. I predict that they'll continue to do into the 114th Congress, and hopefully by the time that it ends in 2016, the American people will be fed up with it and elect some people who are willing to come in and make some changes. And my hats go off to Raul Labrador, Justin Amash, Mr. McClintock from California, Walter Jones from North Carolina. Those representatives, despite the games that their party are playing, stood up to the plate, signed on to the Stop Militarizing Law Enforcement Act, and I appreciate their bipartisanship that lends to the eventual success of this legislation.
And it does stand in stark contrast to some of the politics being played on the other side. As you just mentioned, when you talked about that kind of hollow messaging, this is a very politically fraught issue because there are so many constituents that want this equipment, and certainly don't want it taken away. So this is a politically risky move. We appreciate your coming on to explain it to us, Congressman. Thank you.
Ronan, your viewers can go to don'tmilitarizemainstreet.com and evidence their support for this bill.
And we are going to call on them to express themselves if they were moved by your appeal here. Thank you, Congressman, for your time. If you do think that, if you think police forces should be less militarized, if you responded to that appeal, we're asking you to use all the tools at your disposal to let people know. For this week's call to action, sign a petition asking the House to pass H.R. 5478, that bill you just heard about, the Stop Militarizing Law Enforcement Act of 2014. You can tweet at us at Ronan Daily to let us know what you thought using the hashtag RoNation. We're going to keep you posted on your responses all through the week.